All right, so we got the ASIAIR Plus here. Essentially what you need to do is just take out the screws in the back. These are just Allen screws that you can take out, and they look like so. Wow, look at that, an Allen screw. Once you take out all the screws, essentially the top cover will just pop off. And at this point, this is all we need to do in the teardown. So essentially, we're using the paper clip here. This is a jumper that we'll use in the board. So on the ASIAIR Plus in here, there's 2 pins. And essentially what this jumper is going to do is short these pins out, which is going to allow us to basically boot up the ASIAIR Plus and see the local storage on the disk, so we can back it up and then also replace it with a different operating system. The other thing and the final thing that we'll need is a USB cable. This is a USB 1 to C cable. Essentially, it doesn't matter if you get a high-speed cable or not. It's not going to make any difference at all. I've actually tried to use a high-speed cable and it won't work. And finally, the last thing that we're going to need is a power adapter to power up the ASIAIR Plus. This is just the power adapter that I use for my HEM27 mount. We'll just plug it in to boot it up. So essentially, what we'll do is we'll put in the paper clip to basically short out the pins. So it goes in like so. And then essentially we'll put in our power. And then we'll hook up our USB-C cable. And I'm going to go ahead and go straight into my monitor. And then from there, we just plug in the USB cable here. And essentially this is what it's going to look like. So you're going to have your paper clip, which is going to essentially short out those 2 pins so we can boot it up. You're going to have your power cable, and then you're going to have your USB cable. And essentially at this point, we just turn on the device. And then here we're going to go ahead and hop into the PC. Okay, so I'm running Debian Linux to basically do the backup of this. So the first thing that we need to do is open up our terminal window. So in here, essentially, we're going to go ahead and run RPI boot. This is a utility that I'll have links down below in the description to show you how to install all this stuff. But essentially, RPI boot will boot up, and then essentially here we'll see all the disks that come up from the ASIAIR Plus. So in here, if we go to the disks, we can actually go to the 32 gig and we can see all the partitions that ZWO has created on this. So the goal is that we want to back up all these partitions, and actually for the use of this video, I've already done this. I backed it up. I did a full wipe on the ZWO ASIAIR Plus, and then I reloaded it, and everything is working just as it used to work before. So in here, we're going to go ahead and back this up. So there's different commands that we can use to back up. I like to use the PV command. And essentially, again, there'll be links down below in the description with this. But essentially, you need to find out which disk you're backing up on. And I know it's not SDK because I just saw it. So it's showing SDE. So we need to change that to SDE because that's the partition that we're going to back up. And the reason why I like PV over DD, which most people use to back it up, is that when I hit enter here, it's actually going to show me the estimated time to do the backup. So it's going to take about 52 minutes to do the backup. Okay, so at this point, we've got the image completed. Again, I'm cheating here. I already have the image done. So if we actually go to our file Explorer, I guess you could call it Explorer, whatever. In here, we've got our ASIAIR Plus image. It's 31.3 gigs. It takes, like I said, 52 minutes to basically do the rip. The next thing that we can do is we can use XZ to shrink it. Unfortunately, there's another utility out there called PyShrink. PyShrink won't work with this because ZWO has basically that swap partition, and PyShrink can't deal with swap partitions very well. And I'm not going to mess with the partition table. So essentially in here, what we'll do is essentially creating the best standardized file that we can read and write. So once you do this and hit enter, go ahead and put back in your password, and then it's going to basically start ripping that file. It's going to take some time. If you wait here long enough, it'll actually show you an estimated time as it keeps going. So it's going to take about 16, 17 minutes, and it's growing. I think it took about almost 30 minutes to do the image in the end. Once it's done, you'll end up with an XZ file. And then at that point, essentially, you can use that file to do a restore, and you can use a program like Raspberry Pi, basically the imager, and you can use that to load it. If you're having issues with Raspberry Pi imager, you can also use Balena, I don't know, Balena etcher. We'll just call it etcher. That's the breakdown. Again, once you compress it, it'll be roughly, I think it was 14 gigs when it was finished. And then you can do a restore of that because again, it's still a really large file. With that, that's essentially backing up the device. The next thing we're going to do is go ahead and load it, and we'll do that from Windows, so it's a little easier for users.